My son-in-law smiled, thinking I'd signed away my house. I signed his arrest warrant instead. For 30 years, I ran toward fire. Now, at 62, I was just trying to survive brunch with my daughter and her husband. Lily had called it a family talk. Her word, not mine. I showed up 5 minutes early, old habits, old hope. Summit Café smelled like lemon polish and quiet judgment. Chase, all teeth and Rolex glare, stood as I sat down. "No offense, Walt," he said, stirring his mimosa, "but running into burning houses? In 2025? We have systems now." I took a sip of bitter coffee. "People still choke on smoke, Chase." He smiled. "Sure, but strategy beats heroics. Time you learn to let money work for you. Lily's future depends on it." Lily stirred her latte, eyes down. "You're saying I've outlived my usefulness?" I asked. He laughed softly. "Let's just say, it's time you sign things over before the flames reach your age." I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you, and where are you listening? I was 5 minutes early. Old habits die hard. When you've spent 30 years answering alarms, you start to think punctuality is a kind of prayer. The Lexus idled beneath a row of decorative maples in the Summit Plaza parking lot, their leaves too perfect to be real. My Omega ticked steady on my wrist while the Pike Place in the cup holder went from warm to room temperature. The Wall Street Journal sat folded on the passenger seat, mortgage rates circled, because I still liked to know how the world burned its money. Summit Cafe and Bar tried to look effortless. Edison bulbs, fake brick, succulents so symmetrical they felt like props. The chalkboard behind the counter said truffle omelets $27. The air smelled like lemon polish and quiet judgment. Lily waved from a corner booth, her smile bright but a little too rehearsed. Chase stood as I approached, that smooth, empty politeness some men wear like a watch. He already had a mimosa in hand. "No offense, Walt," he said, swirling the glass so light flashed off the Rolex, "but running into burning houses. In 2025, we have systems now." He flicked a look toward Lily, the shared glance of two people who think they're humoring an older generation. "Your dad's old school." "Oh." I took a sip of my coffee. Lukewarm. Bitter. "People still choke on smoke, Chase." "Sure," he said with a smile. "But strategy beats heroics. Sign of the times." His tone was easy, casual, but the words had edges. Lily didn't speak. She stirred her latte as if that were a form of diplomacy. The server passed, her shoes squeaking once every few steps, setting down a bill on another table. The metal clips squealed, sharp and thin. And for no reason at all. I was back inside a burning duplex. The sound of metal ladders against siding, my gloves slick, the air syrup thick with smoke. A rookie behind me, voice shaking. "Captain, I can't see." Me saying, "Then trust the sound of my voice." When I blinked, I was back at brunch. The light too soft, the room too clean. "So," Chase continued, "I've been thinking about your future. You're what, 62? You should enjoy life. Let money work for you." Is that what it does for you?" I asked. He laughed. "I make it work for Lily. That's the point." She smiled at him, small, careful. "My daughter once, the kid who'd draw fire trucks and insist I was invincible, now married to a man who believed risk was vulgar. The food arrived, omelets shaped like crescents, toast that probably had a backstory. Chase talked about scaling opportunities and leveraging assets. Every word was a spreadsheet in disguise. Lily nodded along, eyes bright but distant. I watched her fingers trace condensation on her water glass circles, smaller and smaller, until they disappeared. "Anyway," Chase said, setting down his fork, "I'd love to help you streamline things. Make sure Lily's taken care of if God forbid something happens. I can bring some documents by next week." I smiled. "You're thoughtful." He mistook that for praise. "Someone has to think long-term, right?" The server reappeared with the check. Another squeal from the metal clip, and something in me filed it away. The sound, the smirk, the rhythm of a man too proud to hide his greed. He signed with a quick flourish. Acting like paying made him the provider for the whole table. I tipped in cash, the old-fashioned way, the honest way. Outside, the sunlight felt different, too honest after that curated glow. Lily and Chase walked ahead of me toward the parking lot. He slipped his hand over hers like sealing a deal. She didn't pull away. I paused beside the cafe window, catching my reflection in the glass. An aging man in a leather jacket, hair silvering at the temples, eyes tired but steady. Once, I fought fires that roared loud enough to shake buildings. Now, the flames were quieter, harder to see. I climbed into the Lexus, laid the journal across my lap, and listened to the faint tick of the Omega. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee. Some fires don't need smoke or heat. They start with words, with silence, with a smirk that says, "I've already won." And sitting there, I realized this one had just begun. I left the cafe with the taste of burnt coffee and the certainty that some fires don't show flame. He showed up just after dinner, holding a Dior shopping bag like it was a peace offering. Lily's name was written on the tag in his neat, controlled handwriting. She wasn't with him, claimed she was running late in a text that ended with a heart emoji, which felt more like punctuation than affection. "Mind if I come in for a minute, Walt?" Chase asked, already stepping over the threshold before I could answer. His smile was the kind that expected permission. The dining room lights glowed soft against the walnut table. My Nest camera blinked a quiet green in the corner, steady as a heartbeat. He laid a stack of papers down between us and smoothed the edges with 2 fingers, like a dealer setting up his game. "It's standard," he said, tapping the top sheet with a Mont Blanc pen that wasn't his mine. "Was upstairs in my desk, older, heavier. Title consolidation. Protects Lily, protects you." I looked at the cover page. Property transfer agreement, 2 words stood out. Lien holder, Bank of America. "My line's with the local credit union," I said. "Why's the bank listed?" He laughed too quickly, that salesman laugh that never reaches the eyes. "Template," he said, waving a hand. "Don't get stuck in the weeds, Walt. It's all above board. I just figured, better to handle this now before anything happens." He said it like he was doing me a favor. I flipped another page. My thumb brushed the notary seal, and something inside me went still. The county crest was wrong too flat. No bevel, no raised edge. Like a lie pressed beneath a hot iron. I'd handled enough documents through the firefighter pension office to know what real ink feels like under your fingertips. He tapped the Mont Blanc again, rhythm steady, too confident. "We can just knock this out. Lily said you trust me with this stuff." "She did, huh?" I said, leaning back. My pulse slowed to a measured beat. Memory flashed, a rookie choking on panic while I fastened his air pack straps, his breaths coming sharp and fast. "Breathe through the fear," I'd told him. "Slow it down. Panic gets you killed." I smiled now, calm as I could manage. "You got a copy of the appraisal report?" Chase blinked, half a second too long. "Oh, sure. Somewhere in the email chain. It's all boilerplate." He reached for his drink, though I hadn't offered one. The ice clinked against the glass. It was the sound of nerves trying to hide inside manners. "I like to read things twice," I said, lifting my iPhone and snapping photos of each page slowly, deliberately. "My lawyer likes digital backups." He froze mid-smile. "You think I'd hand you something shady?" "I think paperwork deserves respect," I said. "You'd be surprised what gets buried in fine print." The Nest blinked again. I could almost feel its tiny lens catching his reflection, his telltale movements, the little flicker in his jaw when he realized I wasn't as naive as he'd hoped. He leaned forward, voice softer now. "Look, Walt, this is for Lily. She worries. You know how she is. We just want to make sure she's secure. You can tell her I appreciate the concern," I said. "But I never sign at night." He frowned, trying to decide if it was a joke. "Why's that?" "Bad lighting," I said. The silence stretched long enough for him to gather the papers, pretending to be casual. He tucked the Mont Blanc into his jacket pocket, thanked me for the coffee he never drank, and let himself out. When the door shut, I exhaled. The room still carried the faint scent of Ruth's perfume, soft and stubborn in the curtain fabric. My eyes went to the Nest camera, its light unwavering. By the time Chase finished rehearsing his kindness, my camera had already learned his face by heart. Tom's office sat 12 floors up, tucked between a nail salon and a CPA firm that smelled like toner and ambition. Midtown hum leaked through the glass sirens somewhere far off, horns like punctuation marks. I'd been here before, years ago, when Ruth and I drew up our will. Back then, the lobby felt reassuring. Today it felt like a waiting room for war. Tom Navarro looked the same. Sleeves rolled, tie loosened, expression caught somewhere between patience and concern. He was one of those lawyers who made you believe in quiet competence. His paralegal, Aaron, perched beside him, fingers flying across a keyboard. My iPad sat on the table between us, screen glowing with Chase's PDFs. "Let's start from the top," Tom said, sliding on his glasses. "Page 1 looks clean. Standard property description, nothing strange." He flipped. "Page 2, here we go." They buried a quitclaim deed under something labeled title correction. Classic misdirection. He turned the iPad toward me, finger-tapping the paragraph. The language was dense but unmistakable. It granted full transfer of my house into a joint account controlled by Chase and Lily. No contingencies. No notice required. I said nothing, just counted the beats of my pulse, slow and steady. Tom kept reading. "And this," he scrolled, stopped, frowned. "Durable power of attorney. Grants Chase the right to manage financial assets, make decisions, sign documents. Basically, your identity in a suit jacket." Aaron leaned forward. "Look at the notary stamp. That seal number's off. I'll check it." She typed fast, the sound like rain against glass. Tom leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "You know what this is, right? They're setting up to move your title, pull a loan, maybe even sell it outright before you're the wiser. Textbook elder financial abuse. I've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end pretty for them." I stared at the screen. The notary name glared up at me. Andrea Holt. My memory ticked. That name used to show up on pension papers back when I handled benefit updates for the firehouse. "She's been out of commission for years," I said quietly. Erin looked up from her monitor. "Suspended last April," she confirmed. "Forgery, probable document tampering. You've got them cold." Tom set his pen down, the Mont Blanc clicking softly. "This is bad for them. Good for you if you want to go nuclear." "Oh." Outside, a siren wound upward, echoing through the window like an old habit refusing to die. I thought about the word discipline, about the nights I'd stood under hydrant mist at 2 a.m., radio hissing in my ear, forcing rookies to stay calm when every instinct said run. Rage doesn't save houses. Procedure does. "What are my options?" I asked. Tom listed them one by one, calm as a man reciting a prayer. Civil injunction, criminal referral, temporary protective order on assets. "We'll start with a DA Consult Financial Crimes Division. I'll need originals for the record, plus a sworn affidavit. You've got evidence, the Nest footage, those photos, timestamps. Solid chain of custody." I nodded. "Do it." He looked at me over the rims of his glasses. "You sure? It means charges, headlines, family fallout." "Civil. Criminal." "Both," I said. My voice didn't shake. He studied me for a long moment. "You can love someone," he said finally, "and still refuse to be stolen from." "Oh." That one landed deep. Aaron printed a few forms, the smell of warm ink drifting across the desk. Somewhere in the hallway, a package hit the carpet with a dull thud. The receptionist murmured an apology through the door. Life continuing as usual, except it wasn't. Tom turned a yellow legal pad toward me. "Start writing down anything you remember, dates, calls, who said what. The more precise, the better." I took the pen, the weight familiar in my hand. I started to write. Not revenge. Not yet. Just facts. But each line felt like a matchstick waiting for friction. Tom slid the pad a little closer, his voice low. "We'll make this right." I nodded, eyes on the pad, and in the faint reflection of the glass tabletop, I saw my own face calm, deliberate, the look of a man who'd stopped hoping for decency and chosen process instead. Tom slid a yellow pad toward me, and I realized I'd been making plans in the margins of my grief for months. Summit Ridge Country Club always smelled like lemon polish and quiet judgment. The carpet was soft enough to swallow sound, the chandeliers humming faintly like mosquitoes that didn't know when to quit. I'd been there before charity banquets, fundraisers, the kind of events where everyone pretends to care about community while calculating net worth. But tonight wasn't about the community, it was about Chase. It was Lily and Chase's pre-anniversary dinner, hosted by friends of the family, which really meant anyone with the right golf handicap or last name. The moment I walked in, I felt eyes flicker over me. My plain jacket, my calloused hands, the way I didn't wear my status like a cufflink. Chase greeted me at the bar, his Rolex catching the light just long enough to announce itself. "Walt," he said, all teeth and cheer. "Glad you made it. Grab a drink, tonight's on me." He gestured to the bartender, who poured me something amber and safe. The condensation ring it left on the bar looked more honest than anything else in the room. Lily was across the lounge, laughing with a woman I didn't know, her hand resting lightly on her wine glass. She looked happy enough, which should have been comforting. It wasn't. The way she smiled at Chase now was different, tight around the edges. Polite in public, practiced. A man I barely knew, one of Chase's golf buddies, clapped my shoulder. "Heard you were the guy from that fire on 12th Avenue. The hoarder house, right?" The words hit harder than they should have. I smiled without showing teeth. "We called it a rescue, not a hoarder house." He chuckled. Sure. My wife saw it on the neighborhood watch page. Said it was tragic, but, those people." His voice trailed off when he realized I wasn't laughing. Dinner followed white linen, overpriced salmon, a server whose shoes squeaked every third step. I'd almost relaxed when Chase stood, tapping his glass with the back of his Mont Blanc pen. "To family," he started, voice rising just enough to command the room, "and to Walt, who taught us about courage." Polite laughter rippled around the table, the kind of laughter that doesn't mean amusement, just participation. I managed a small nod. Chase grinned wider, milking the moment. Not the running into fire kind, of course. The symbolic kind, the old school kind. Another round of chuckles, lighter this time, easier. He reached under his chair and pulled out a leather folder. "And because he's a man of action," he said, holding it up like a prop, "I brought a little gift, just a simple form, for peace of mind." The folder landed in front of me with a soft thud that carried more weight than it should have. I didn't touch it. My omega ticked, once, twice. Lily leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, it's fine. It's just—" "Out with the old," Chase said, cutting her off smoothly. "In with the secure." The word secure stuck to the air like smoke. It triggered a flash Ruth, years ago, tucking Lily's hair behind her ear, whispering, "You're safe with us." My fingers tightened under the table until my knuckles blanched against the linen. I looked at the folder, then at him. "You want me to sign something in front of witnesses?" He chuckled, spreading his hands. "Why not? Transparency, right?" The room laughed again. I didn't. I pushed the folder slightly toward him. "You first." The smile faltered, just a flicker. "Come on, Walt, don't make this awkward. It's just paperwork." "Then it can wait." Silence followed. Even the chandelier seemed to buzz louder, the hum deepening as if the light itself had chosen sides. Lily stared at her plate. Chase's jaw flexed once before he smiled again, tight this time. Of course. Another day, then. He turned back to the crowd, the room quickly shifting to safer topics: stock tips, Scottsdale weather, a new Tesla model. But the laughter had lost its ease. I finished my drink. The glass left another ring, another mark no one would clean up. When I didn't reach for his pen, the chandelier seemed to buzz louder, as if even the light had picked a side. The sunlight in the ballroom was almost too clean. It came through the wide windows in sharp white lines that made everything look polished and unreal. The linen, the champagne flutes, the polished smiles. The string quartet in the corner played something meant to sound effortless, but wasn't. Their music wobbled when people talked too loudly. It was Lily and Chase's anniversary brunch. Same club as before, just brighter. More witnesses this time. I could see our neighbors from the cul-de-sac, people who knew just enough about our family to fill in their own blanks. Lily met me at the entrance. She kissed my cheek, but her eyes had already moved past me, toward the guests. She wore soft blue, hair pinned up the way Ruth used to like it, and there was a Dior bag resting neatly by her chair. The sight of it made something twist in my chest, because I remembered the woman who used to carry hand-me-down purses without apology. "Dad," she said as I sat down, her voice soft but controlled, "we just need to finalize one thing before brunch starts, okay?" Chase was already standing, smiling, file in hand like a man hosting a seminar. "We're thrilled to announce the next steps," he said to the table, voice loud enough to carry. "Securing our future, making sure the family home is properly managed. Nothing major, just signatures." People nodded politely. Forks paused. I stared at the file, still closed, and said nothing. "Dad," Lily said again, her hand brushing the folder toward me. "Please, we already told the mortgage broker you'd sign, It's just a formality. My throat went dry. You told them I'd sign? She looked away. Don't make a scene. The quartet faltered for half a second before recovering. The sound hung like a blush over the room. Chase jumped in smoothly. We've pre-cleared it at the bank, he said, his voice cheerful, professional. Just need your name on the line so we can lock in the rate. I looked at him, then at Lily. You cleared it without me. Lily's eyes darted around the table, catching the phones lifted casually, guests pretending to snap photos of the brunch spread but catching everything. Her cheeks flushed. Dad, please. You're being dramatic. Let Chase manage this. You're retired. That word landed like a siren in my head. Retired. As if that meant irrelevant. Someone laughed nervously. I don't know who. I sat back, fingers resting on the tablecloth. My Omega ticked once, twice. Somewhere near the window, a waiter poured too much champagne, the fizz spilling over like a sound effect for humiliation. I could hear Ruth's voice in my head. Don't let anger choose your words. Let your work do it. So I said nothing. I just reached into my pocket, found my phone, and slid it face down beside the untouched folder. Chase mistook the silence for surrender. Perfect, he said brightly, holding out his Mont Blanc. You can sign right here, Walt. Make it official. I didn't move. The tension stretched thin. Dad, Lily whispered, eyes shining in that desperate way people get when they're more afraid of embarrassment than of truth. I met her gaze. You want me to sign something I haven't read, in public, for convenience? Chase's smile stiffened. It's just family business. I nodded once. Family business, yes. The cameras were still up, so I smiled. Not for him, not for her, for the record. The quartet hit the final note of their song, sharp and unsteady. Somewhere above us, a hairline crack in the crown molding caught the light. I smiled for the photos because that is what you do when a fire is already inside the walls. The house was silent, except for the hum of the desk lamp and the faint tick of the wall clock. My MacBook Air glowed soft blue against the dark wood, the Wall Street Journal mortgage rate chart still open from that morning. Ruth's photo sat beside it, her smile the calm in every storm I'd ever known. I looked at it once, then picked up the phone. Detective Reyes? Keen. Yes. It's time. Her voice came steady, professional. We'll need the originals and your nest footage. You'll have both by 4, I said. No tremor in my voice, just protocol. I opened Tom's email again, the legal memo dense with statutes and citations. California Penal Code 368D stared back at me. Elder financial abuse? It sounded clinical, almost sterile, until you realized it meant someone you loved thought you were disposable. I printed everything. The machine hummed, spitting out pages one by one, the heat from the paper curling faintly at the edges. I slipped the documents into a manila envelope, wrote chain of custody across the flap in black ink. My handwriting looked like my father's that day he taught me to sign an incident report, blocky, deliberate, accountable. Next came the affidavit. I uncapped my old Mont Blanc. The nib scratched against the paper like a match striking dry wood. I, Walter Kina, being duly sworn. The words came easy. Habit. Command tone. I'd written hundreds of reports in my life. Fatalities, fires, line-of-duty injuries. This was no different. Just a fire with better lighting. I scanned the signed affidavit, attached it to an email addressed to Reyes, CC'd Tom, blind copied myself. Subject line. Affidavit and evidence. Keene versus Hayes. Then I picked up the phone again this time. The title company. This is Walter Keene. Property address 1437 Maple Drive. I'm filing a temporary freeze due to pending fraud investigation. The woman on the other end hesitated. You'll need to confirm with your insurer. Oh, already done, I said, clicking through to my insurer's portal. Reference claim 5,286. Fraud Prevention Division. Understood, she said finally. We'll flag it immediately. Flagged. Frozen. Documented. I wasn't shouting anymore. I was flipping switches. Each click, each email, each notarized form was a valve turning, redirecting the pressure. At 2:17 p.m., a courier arrived, a kid in a gray jacket, barely old enough to rent a car. Pick up for the DA's office, he said, holding out a scanner. I signed the receipt, watched him disappear down the sidewalk. The sound of the door closing was sharper than it should have been. I poured myself a cup of coffee. still half warm from the pot. Bitter, overbrewed, just the way Ruth used to make it when she was in a hurry. The cereal flake under my mousepad caught the light. My grandson had been here 2 weekends ago, watching cartoons on my laptop while I fixed his toy truck. I should have tossed the flake, but I didn't. It grounded me a reminder of what this fight was really for. By late afternoon, the email notification pinged. Case ID 25 to 4839 assigned investigator. Reyes M.M. The system had recognized the fire. I stood, walked the perimeter of the house at dusk. The Ring camera clicked quietly as I passed each corner, logging my movement, my proof of calm control. I could almost hear Ruth again, soft in my head. Don't let anger choose your words. The air smelled like rain on old concrete. I looked out at the street, saw porch lights flicking on one by one, and realized I was breathing steady for the first time in weeks. By sundown, the case had a number, and I had my breath back. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you, and where are you listening? The steakhouse was the kind of place that wanted you to know it was expensive without saying it out loud. Dark wood, soft booths, and a wall of wine bottles backlit like stained glass. Scottsdale vacation plans drifted from the next table over, polite laughter clinking against silverware. I sat where the host put me, corner booth, good sight lines. When the maitre d' said, "Welcome back, Mr. Keene," Chase preened like the greeting was for him. He looked perfect, of course, new suit, watch glinting under low light, that confidence money buys before it earns it. "Glad you came, Walt," he said, flashing that TV-ready grin. "Figured it's time we bury the hatchet, right?" "Sure," I said. My voice was even. "Always good to talk." The waiter took our order, Chase, with his usual performance. Medium rare steak, glass of Pinot, the house special, whatever that means. I ordered coffee. He smirked. "Still on duty, huh?" Something like that. He leaned forward as soon as the waiter left. "So, I had my guy redo the paperwork," he said, pulling out a fresh packet. "Clean copies, no confusion this time. Let's be adult about it. Sign tonight, we lock a great rate. Inflation's a bear." He spread the papers between us like a magician laying out cards. Underneath his packet, on my side of the table, I slid my own page, a single sheet of crisp legal paper with a blue judge's stamp that gleamed faintly in the candlelight. The arrest warrant. Court signed. The ink still smelled faintly of ozone and printer heat. I didn't need to show it. It wasn't for him. It was for me a talisman, a reminder that I wasn't imagining any of this. I looked at his top page. "Show me the sections where your power's been removed." Chase laughed, casual, cocky. "You really don't trust family?" I tilted the page, careful. The edge of the warrant caught the light blue seal winking up at me. My hand stayed steady. "Trust," I said quietly, "is a word you earn after the paperwork clears." He chuckled again, but it sounded forced this time. "You know, Walt, you've got to stop letting the past define everything. You're retired. Let people help you." "I do," I said, reaching for my coffee. "I called in some help today." He didn't catch it. Too focused on performing. He started explaining escrow timelines and interest adjustments, words he didn't understand but loved the sound of. I nodded in the right places, half listening, half watching the mirrored wall across from us. The reflection showed the front entrance, the revolving door, the dim lobby beyond. I reached for my phone. My thumb hovered over one word. Then I sent it. "Go." That was all Detective Reyes needed. Chase kept talking. "You'll see, this makes life simple. You get guaranteed returns. We consolidate. We—" "Chase," I interrupted, folding the papers neatly and setting them aside. "You ever hear that saying about fires?" He frowned. "What fires?" "The ones that start small," I said, sipping my coffee. "The ones that look like nothing until the smoke alarms start going off." He blinked, confused, smiling too hard. "Walt, you've got to let this go, man. You think too much." Across the room, the waiter zested a lemon over oysters, the scent sharp in the air. A tiny burn mark on the linen by my hand caught the light, a perfect brown oval, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. "Not yet. Not now." The maitre d' returned with dessert menus, his voice cheerful. "Creme brulee for the gentleman?" "Sure," I said. When he set down the spoons, the reflection in the mirrored wall flickered. Blue lights painted the street outside, flashing slow and rhythmic, like a storm arriving exactly on schedule. The sound reached me before the lights did two short radio bursts from the entrance, clipped and professional. The kitchen door kept swinging behind the line cooks, its rhythm steady as a metronome. Somewhere near the bar, a match rasped. A candle flared back to life. I stayed seated, my coffee cooling beside the plate. Detective Reyes appeared first, flanked by another officer in plain clothes. She moved the way people do when they're used to rooms tightening around them, measured steps, no wasted motion. "Chase Alden Sorensen?" she said, voice low but carrying. Chase blinked, half smiling like it was a prank. "Yeah. Why?" Reyes pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "You're under arrest for attempted deed fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse." The words were simple, heavy, final. The dining room fell into a vacuum. Forks froze midair. Conversations bled into silence. Even the bartender stopped polishing glasses. Chase's chair scraped back hard enough to make the nearest table flinch. "Wait, what? This is insane." He turned to me, eyes wide, voice cracking. "Walt, come on, tell them. Tell them this is a mistake." I didn't move. My hand stayed flat on the table, the citizen watch against my wrist cool and solid. "It's not a mistake," I said softly. He reached for me, then stopped when the second officer stepped forward. "Hands visible, sir." The handcuffs clicked once metal meeting flesh, a sound I'd heard too many times in different contexts. The maitre d' whispered something to the manager, who nodded, already comping desserts for the room, damage control for the whispers spreading like fire in dry grass. Then the door opened again and Lily rushed in. Her heels caught the light. The strap of her Dior bag slipped off her shoulder as she scanned the room. "Dad?" Her eyes found the badges, then the cuffs, then me. "Dad, what did you do?" Her voice carried. Every phone in the room came up at once. Screens glowed blue in the dim light. Detective Reyes read Chase his rights, steady as a metronome. Lily stood frozen, then turned on me, voice sharp, trembling. "Stop this! You're ruining everything!" I looked at her, saw the panic, not for justice, but for reputation. For the brunches and the photo ops and the careful image she'd built around him. I wanted to tell her I understood, that I remembered her as a little girl falling asleep on my shoulder after long shifts, her breath warm against my neck, the faint scent of shampoo. But the words wouldn't come. My throat burned. "No, honey," I said finally, keeping my voice even. "I'm stopping it." Chase's face had gone gray. "Lily, call my lawyer?" "Don't," Reyes said quietly. "You'll have a chance to call once we're done here." He looked back at me, pleading. "Walt, please." But the time for begging had passed. The officer led him past the wine wall, his reflection fractured across the glass bottles like pieces of a man already broken. The whispers turned to murmurs, the murmurs to small gasps. Someone near the bar muttered, "Elder abuse, that's what they said." Another answered, "I heard about that house transfer thing. Facebook thread last week." The crack in the tile by the host stand caught my eye, tiny, insignificant, but permanent. I watched as Chase was guided through the door, the blue flash of police lights spilling through the windows, washing over the white tablecloths like a cold tide. Lily was still standing there, tears cutting sharp lines down her face. She whispered it again, softer this time. "You're ruining everything." I wanted to tell her she'd already done that. Instead, I sat back, folded my napkin once, and set it on the table. As they led Chase past the wine wall, I realized the next fire wasn't his arrest. It was my daughter's shame, and it would burn longer. The morning air carried that clean, burnt scent that follows a storm, the kind firefighters know by heart. I sat on the porch, the sky still gray enough to feel honest. Coffee steamed in my old Starbucks mug, its ceramic warmth grounding me better than any prayer could. The Ring doorbell blinked awake with each motion, each delivery a slow procession of sympathy, casseroles, banana bread, and quiet notes left under foil lids. No one wanted to say too much. They didn't have to. The world had already done the talking for them. My phone buzzed against the porch rail. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Heard what happened at the steakhouse, Walt," a gravelly voice said. Took me a second to place it Tom Sanders from 2 streets over, the guy who never waved. About time someone stood up to that kind of crap. Before I could respond, another message came through. That kid represented us in the Rotary. Guess that's done. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need to. The local news was already looping the clip Detective Ray is in frame, Chase's voice breaking as he was led out between tables, the words elder financial abuse scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I watched long enough to see my own reflection ghosting over the footage, then muted the sound. Inside, the house hummed quietly refrigerator, HVAC, the distant whir of the dishwasher. Normal sounds. It struck me that peace doesn't arrive like a parade. It sneaks in through the smallest, most ordinary noises. I scrolled through Facebook. The neighborhood watch group had gone feral. Someone posted, "Can't believe we trusted that guy with the HOA fundraisers." Another, "His poor wife. Wait, isn't her dad the retired fire captain?" Then a comment from an old name, "Walt Keen's as solid as they come. Man pulled my brother out of a roof collapse in '98. Don't mess with firefighters, they document everything." The thread kept growing. I stopped reading. The Herald crime blotter ran the story mid-morning. Local entrepreneur, arrested for deed fraud scheme. Victim identified as retired fire captain Walter Keene. No dramatics, no adjectives, just fact. That was enough. By mid-morning, my phone filled again, this time with numbers I recognized. "Walt, you seeing this?" That was Vince, one of my old firehouse lieutenants. "Half the guys at the station are talking about it. We're proud of you, brother." Another call. "Keene, Chamber of Commerce wants to know if you'll come back on the board. Integrity representation, they're calling it." Even the neighborhood association chair who once asked if my rusted truck could be parked somewhere less visible texted me a photo of a flyer. Community barbecue, honor for service and integrity. She'd circled my name. I stared at it for a long time. Funny how the same people who avoided eye contact in the grocery store now wanted me to speak. But this wasn't gloating. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition, the kind that costs something to earn. I turned the volume back on. The TV anchor's voice floated through the living room. Former entrepreneur and son-in-law of retired fire captain Walter Keene was charged yesterday evening. I muted it again. The mug was still warm in my hands. For the first time in months, so was the silence. I thought of a night years ago, a soot-black stairwell, a rookie's voice trembling behind me. "Captain, do we go back in?" And my answer then, the same as now, "We already are." By noon, every circle that had once whispered about me was whispering about him instead. The doorbell rang once, sharp, then again before I could stand. I already knew it was her. No one else rang like that, impatient, clipped, the sound of someone holding anger in their throat. I opened the door, and Lily brushed past me, Dior perfume trailing behind her like smoke. She hadn't been in my house since before the arrest. Same living room, same framed photo of her mother on the mantel, same leather couch she used to fall asleep on after dance recitals. But the air between us was different now, heavy, brittle, like the seconds before glass cracks. She stood in the middle of the room, clutching her phone like it could protect her. "Do you know what this did to our reputation?" she said, voice trembling more with emotion than volume. "My friends saw that video, Dad. The whole town did." I sat back in my chair, letting her words land. "Your husband forged my signature," I said quietly. Her jaw tightened. "He said you misunderstood." "I didn't. He said it was paperwork confusion, that you got paranoid and called the cops before talking to us." I looked at her, really looked. The dark circles under her eyes, the way she kept adjusting the strap of her bag as if she couldn't find balance. "Then he'll have a chance to explain it to a judge," I said. Her head snapped up. "You don't have to sound so proud about it." "I'm not proud," I said. "I'm tired." She laughed once, sharp and brittle. "You humiliated us, Dad. At a restaurant. People filmed it." I didn't answer. Some silences speak louder than defense ever could. She kept pacing back and forth, her heels ticking against the hardwood like a metronome for frustration. "Do you know what it's like to have people whisper every time you walk into the club? To see my friends look at me with pity?" I almost said, "Welcome to my last 6 months," but didn't. Instead, I said, "I know what it's like to watch someone you love lie straight to your face." Her mouth opened, then closed. She picked up her phone, scrolling as if looking for proof, something to lean on. "He said he was helping us," she whispered. "He was helping himself," I replied. She slammed her phone down on the coffee table, the sound sharp enough to make the framed photo of her mother tremble. "You always cared more about rules than people," she shouted. Her voice cracked on people. For a moment she looked like that little girl again, the one who once cried when I missed a school recital because of a late fire call. I wanted to stand, to reach out, to tell her she didn't have to pick sides. But I stayed still. The urge to comfort her rose like muscle memory, but I swallowed it. Compassion, I reminded myself, doesn't mean surrender. She turned away, rubbing her temples. "You just don't get it. Everything's falling apart." "Sometimes things have to," I said. She didn't answer. She just walked toward the door, pausing at the counter. The spare house keys she'd borrowed months ago sat there. She hesitated, then placed them down gently, metal against wood, the sound small but final. "Tell Mom I said hi," she murmured, voice barely audible. Then she left. The house was quiet again, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. Her perfume lingered long after she left, sweet, expensive, and suffocating. The smell of charcoal and hickory hit me before I even reached the pavilion. Veterans Park hadn't changed much since my rookie years, same faded American flags fluttering against the chain-link fence, same picnic tables that had seen too many 4th of Julys and retirement send-offs. But today, it wasn't about endings. It was about standing ground. When I stepped onto the gravel, heads turned. Old comrades, younger recruits, a few faces I hadn't seen since the firehouse fundraiser after Ruth's funeral. Someone clapped once, and the sound spread until it became applause, steady, respectful, not loud. Tom Navarro, my attorney and friend, handed me a paper plate stacked with ribs. "You know, Walt," he said, "the DA's office told me this case might set precedent for elder financial abuse. They're calling it the Keene Clause." I shook my head, half smiling. "It's not about me. It's about drawing a line." An old buddy from my first station, Hank, laughed, slapping my shoulder. "Yeah, well, you drew it with a fountain pen instead of an axe." Laughter rolled through the group like soft thunder under a summer sky. Someone handed me a cold soda, no beer tonight. Too many grandkids running around with sparklers for that. Across the lawn, I saw recruits from the new class clustered near the grill, whispering the way rookies do when they're trying not to stare. One of them, a tall kid with nervous energy, finally approached. "Captain Keene," he said. "Sir, if you don't mind, how do you keep your head when everyone's losing theirs?" I thought about it for a second. "You don't," I said. "You just make sure they don't see it." He nodded slowly, like he'd been handed a secret worth guarding. Tom raised a plastic cup. "A toast," he said, "to Walt Keene, who reminded us that integrity isn't about noise, it's about documentation." More laughter, then cheers. The kind that rise from deep in the chest, not the polite kind reserved for speeches. A local journalist from the Herald recorded snippets, her microphone bobbing in the air. I caught fragments of her questions: legacy, respect, community trust. None of it sounded like gossip anymore. It sounded like repair. As the evening settled, the sun dipped low behind the flagpole, painting the sky in streaks of copper and violet. Kids ran past with sparklers, their laughter chasing the smoke that curled lazily above the grills. Someone started a low hum of "Take Me Home, Country Roads," off-key but heartfelt. I sat back on a picnic bench, watching the flames die down, feeling the warmth against my knees. For a fleeting moment, I saw Ruth barefoot, laughing, ladling potato salad into paper bowls at a firehouse potluck years ago. Her voice, the ring of it, echoed faintly in the space between laughter and dusk. I didn't blink it away. I let it stay until it faded on its own. Tom leaned beside me, his voice low. "You know, this whole town's watching, Walt. You didn't just win a case, you reminded people where the moral line is." I exhaled slowly, the night air cool against my skin. "Funny thing about lines," I said. "They only matter if someone's willing to stand on the right side of them." The fire pit hissed as someone poured water over the coals. Sparks lifted into the air, tiny embers glowing against the dark, like stubborn stars refusing to go out. When the last sparkler went out, I realized some fires burn bright because they're meant to light the way back. The courthouse smelled like paper and coffee that had been reheated one too many times. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, and the low hum of the air conditioner rattling just enough to sound like a heartbeat. It wasn't my first time in a courtroom, but it was the first time I'd ever been the one called to the stand. Chase sat at the defense table, pale, expensive suit hanging on him like armor that didn't fit anymore. His attorney, young and sharp in a way that only inexperience can afford, kept shuffling papers like he could rearrange the truth if he just flipped them fast enough. Captain Keene, the defense attorney began, stepping toward the witness box, voice polished with rehearsed civility. Isn't it true that your memory has declined over the years? I looked straight at him. I remember every fire I ever fought, I said evenly, and every time someone tried to steal my home. A ripple moved through the courtroom, soft gasps, shifting chairs, the quiet power of words landing where they were meant to. The judge lifted an eyebrow, but didn't intervene. The defense attorney cleared his throat. Well, Captain, he said, flipping through a folder that already looked too thick for its own good. Perhaps you misunderstood your son-in-law's intentions. These documents show the prosecutor, a woman with the kind of calm that makes people tell the truth just to fill the silence, interrupted smoothly. Objection, counsel is speculating. Sustained, the judge said. The attorney backed off half a step, the click of his shoe echoing on tile. He tried again. Then, Captain, could it be that you overreacted? I leaned forward slightly. When a man forges your signature on a deed and tries to transfer your property into his company, that's not an overreaction. That's a felony. The prosecutor smiled faintly and turned to the projector. Your Honor, Exhibit C Ring doorbell footage time-stamped March 3rd. The screen lit up. The video showed Chase, unmistakably, walking up my driveway with a clipboard, glancing around before placing an envelope under my doormat. His face illuminated by the porch light, casual and confident. A collective murmur ran through the gallery. Exhibit D, she continued. Bank communications confirming a wire request from the defendant's account to a shell company he registered 3 weeks earlier. The attorney tried to object again, voice rising slightly. The judge shut him down with a single look. I didn't move, didn't gloat. Just watched as the evidence did what anger never could burn clean. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily. She sat in the second row, hands clasped tight around her purse. Her mascara trembled more than her expression. For months, she'd chosen his story over mine. But now, watching those emails, that footage, the timeline of deceit laid bare, I could see something shifting behind her eyes. Not pity, recognition. When the prosecutor finished, she nodded to me. No further questions, Captain. Thank you for your service to the department and to the truth. I stood, stepping down from the witness box slowly. Chase stared at the table, jaw locked. A man trying to hold on to a version of himself that no longer existed. As I passed Lily's row, she looked up, lips parted like she wanted to speak. I didn't stop. The gavel came down with a single hollow crack. Guilty on all counts. But I didn't hear victory in that sound, just the air finally finding room again in my lungs. The afternoon was soft in that way only autumn can manage, sunlight muted through thinning branches, leaves drifting across the patio like quiet confessions. I heard the gate click before I saw her. Lily walked up the path slowly, head down, her shadow stretching long across the grass. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the months had hollowed her out and left only the truth behind. Hi, Dad, she said, voice careful, as if testing how much it could hold before breaking. I nodded toward the chair across from me. Sit. For a while, we didn't talk. The wind handled the silence for us, pushing leaves against the fence in soft bursts. When she finally spoke, her words came in pieces. I didn't want to see it, she said. Any of it. He made me believe you were angry, controlling, that you didn't understand the world now. I took a sip of my coffee, still warm enough to steady my hands. He was half right, I said. I understand people better than ever. She let out a shaky laugh that wasn't joy, just release. He told me we needed to keep the finances separate. Said it was for my safety, but really it was so he could move money without me seeing. I thought I was protecting us. You were protecting his reflection, I said quietly. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. I know. Every lie felt like a lifeline until it wasn't. I kept thinking if I just believed harder, it would make it true. I looked at her hands bare now, no wedding ring, just pale marks where it used to rest. Belief isn't loyalty, Lily. It's hope mismanaged. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I wanted to call you so many times, but every time I picked up the phone, he'd say you'd turn me against him, that you'd never forgive me. Oh, I watched a leaf land on the patio stone between us, yellow edges curling inward. He didn't understand that forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow rebuild. She nodded, tears slipping freely now. I'm sorry, Dad, for believing him, for choosing him over you, for letting everything you built become a weapon against you. I felt the weight of her words settle between us, not accusation, just gravity. You were his victim too, I said. That's the part people forget. She shook her head. No, I was a volunteer for too long. Neither of us spoke for a minute. The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of burnt leaves from somewhere down the street. It reminded me of the firehouse, of long nights and the crackle of radios. Of her, as a child, sitting on my shoulders during the department picnics, eating ice cream faster than it could melt. I remember teaching you to ride your bike, I said finally. You gripped my hand so tight I thought you'd never let go. But when you did, you didn't fall, you just didn't believe you could keep going without me. She wiped her cheeks, smiling through it. Maybe I'm ready to try again. I nodded once, slow. Then start by being honest with yourself first. She stood, hesitant but taller somehow. Can I come back for dinner next week? Yes, I said. We'll start with that. When she left, I stayed on the porch, coffee cooling beside me, the last leaves drifting down through the fading light, each one lighter for having let go. Tom's office smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper, the kind of place where lives were catalogued in neat folders and signed into permanence. The late afternoon sun sliced through the Venetian blinds, laying thin bars of gold across the conference table. I'd sat here before, months ago, trembling with anger. This time, I came with calm hands. Tom adjusted his glasses. Update clause for property beneficiaries? Yes, I said. The trust goes to the firefighters' children's fund. The lake cabin goes to Lily, but under stewardship terms. She can use it, care for it, pass it on, but she can't sell it. He nodded, tapping his pen thoughtfully. Measured, not merciless. I smiled faintly. That's the goal. The Mont Blanc felt different this time, lighter, less like a weapon, more like a compass. As the nib pressed into the paper, I remembered the first time I held it. Ruth had given it to me when I made captain. For the signatures that matter, she'd said. Funny how right she was. Tom slid the document back toward me once it was done. You're building legacy the way you built fires, one controlled burn at a time. I laughed softly. At least this time no one's getting singed. Outside, the day was slipping into evening. I drove past the old firehouse where Lily had started volunteering 3 months earlier. Through the open bay doors, I saw her crouched beside a pile of donated blankets, helping a little boy zip up a donated coat. Her hair was tied back, face flushed with effort and something that looked a lot like peace. I parked across the street for a minute, just watching. She wasn't looking for praise or forgiveness, she was just working. And that's what made it real. Every blanket she handed out, every family she spoke to, was a small act of rebuilding brick by brick, not apology by apology. A gust of wind carried the sound of laughter from the volunteers inside, rough-edged and genuine. For the first time, I saw a reflection of the woman Ruth had always believed Lily could become. Love her enough to let her learn, Ruth's voice echoed softly in my memory. I drove on, the road winding toward the lake. The cabin came into view, fresh paint, trimmed hedges, new life. I'd sold the house Chase once tried to claim, donated half the proceeds to the fund. The rest had gone toward fixing this place, not as an inheritance, but a reminder. Value is measured in stewardship, not ownership. The sun hung low over the water, gold bleeding into blue. I stepped out of the truck, gravel crunching under my boots, and walked to the edge of the dock. The boards creaked the same way they had when Lily was little, running ahead with Ruth calling after her. I could almost hear it, the laughter, the splash, the life we'd built before it all cracked. I reached into my coat pocket and took out the pen, still capped. The same pen that had signed affidavits, freeze notices, and a dozen documents meant to protect me from the people I loved. Now it had drawn a different line, not of defense but of definition. The pen that once drew blood now drew boundaries. As I stood there, the water stilled, and for a moment everything loss, love, law felt balanced. Not perfect, just right enough to begin again. The morning of the ceremony smelled like rain on metal firehouse air, clean and familiar. The courtyard was lined with folding chairs, rows of uniforms, and flags that hung at half-staff for the ones we'd lost along the way. Someone had set up a coffee urn on the tailgate of Engine 12, steam curling into the cool air. It wasn't a grand event, but it was honest, the kind of gathering built on calloused hands and shared silence. The mayor stood at the podium, voice carrying easily through the speakers. Captain Walter Keene reminded us that service isn't outdated, it's the backbone of this town. His tone wasn't political. It was grateful. Real. I stood near the front, the firehouse bricks warm behind me. I could see Lily moving quietly along the edges of the crowd, helping an older firefighter's wife arrange the photo display. Her hair was pulled back, her movements steady, deliberate, no fanfare. Just work. When the mayor called my name, the applause rose like a tide. I walked to the podium, the echo of boots on concrete pulling me through time drills, alarms, laughter in the kitchen at 2 a.m. I shook the mayor's hand, nodded to the crowd, and turned when Lily stepped forward holding the plaque. "For once," she whispered as she handed it to me, her voice trembling with something like peace. "I'm proud to share your last name." I met her eyes. That's all I ever wanted. The cameras flashed, but the real picture was in the faces around us. Tom standing off to the side, smiling like a man who finally got to see paperwork turn into purpose. The DA's liaison, Reyes, leaning against the truck, arms crossed but eyes soft. The rookies who had shown up just to see what integrity looked like in person. The plaque wasn't fancy wood frame, brass plate, my name engraved beneath the words, "For service and integrity beyond measure." Still, it felt heavier than it should have. Maybe because it wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who'd stood by me when it would have been easier to look away. I glanced at the flag above us, its edges catching the wind. For a second, the applause in the courtyard blurred with another sound, Ruth's laughter. I could almost see her in the crowd again, standing where she always had, hands clasped, pride in her eyes. That memory folded itself into the moment so seamlessly I didn't fight it. When the speeches ended, people lingered. Someone started a grill, kids chased each other between the trucks, and an old engine bell rang just once for the fallen. Lily stayed near me, greeting people, accepting quiet congratulations on my behalf. There was no tension now, just understanding. She'd stopped trying to fix what had already burned and started learning how to build something new in its place. A few firefighters called me over for a group photo. "Come on, Captain, one more for the wall." I stood in the middle, surrounded by my brothers and sisters in turnout jackets, the smell of smoke and soap lingering faintly on them. I looked toward Lily again. She was watching the flag. The wind lifted it high, and for the first time, she didn't look away. As the crowd began to disperse, I caught her expression not of regret but recognition, like she finally understood what it meant to hold the line. And as the flag settled, so did I. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you and where are you listening? The house had gone quiet years ago, too quiet, but that evening it breathed again. The smell of roasted chicken and cinnamon drifted from the kitchen, laughter from the living room where my grandkids argued over board game rules. The same walnut table where Chase once slid those forged papers now held plates, candles, and honest conversation. No signatures, no traps, just family. Lily sat across from me, hair tucked behind her ear, the years of strain replaced by something softer. She passed the potatoes to her youngest, then caught my eye with a small smile. "I still see him sometimes," she said quietly. "In dreams." I nodded. "That's fine, just don't follow him when you wake." She laughed, but it caught on the edge of a sigh. "I used to think closure meant forgetting. Now I know it just means not living there anymore." The candlelight flickered against the framed photo of Ruth on the wall. Her smile caught forever in mid-laughter. For a heartbeat, it felt like she was sitting with us again, proud but quiet, the way she always was when family filled the house. When the kids ran off toward the den, I poured 2 cups of coffee, the mugs clinking softly. Lily cupped hers between her palms like she used to when she was little, warming her hands before sipping. "You know," I said, "honor's not about medals. It's about who you can sit across from without shame." She nodded slowly. "You were right, Dad. About boundaries. I thought they were walls, but they're really just structure. The thing that keeps love from collapsing." Her words hit deeper than she probably meant them to. Exactly, I said. Forgiveness without forgetting. We don't erase the fire. We learn how to rebuild around what survived. The clock in the hallway ticked softly, steady as breath. For a long while we didn't speak. The kind of silence that used to ache now just settled like dust in sunlight. Lily reached across the table, her hand steady this time. I took it. No speeches, no apologies left to make. Just a pulse, shared and understood. The kids came barreling back in, chasing each other, filling the space with noise and motion. One of them knocked into the sideboard, and the old Nest camera, a relic from that long-ago night, tipped slightly. Still plugged in, but no longer recording. I left it that way. Some stories don't need more evidence. As the evening wound down, Lily gathered the dishes while I stood by the doorway, watching her hum to herself. She moved through the same kitchen her mother once had, her rhythm familiar, her shoulders finally unburdened. Before she left, she turned at the door. "You doing okay, Dad?" I smiled. "Better than okay. Just learning how to live without waiting for the next alarm." She grinned through tears. "Fire's end, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "But what we build after, that's the story." When the car lights disappeared down the street, I sat back at the table. The candle had burned low, wax pooling in small, perfect circles. I traced a finger along the grain of the wood, the same table that had seen deception, confrontation, and now peace. Ruth's presence lingered in the warmth of the room, not as a ghost, but as memory fulfilled. I finally let her rest. Outside, the night settled over the neighborhood, calm and ordinary. Inside, the house felt solid again. Boundaries held. Fires ended. And what remained, truth, love, and the sound of children's laughter, was enough.